What is up, Canada? What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and today we're going live because Doug Ford's going to let us know probably some new rules. We've got an announcement that's supposed to be at 11 a.m. As always, let me know in the comments section before 11 a.m. what's the over-under of them showing up actually at 11 a.m. I think this is going to be our fourth live stream covering these press conferences. This would be the first time ever they showed up on time. I am, fingers crossed, really hoping that they're going to show up by 11:30 at least, because today I've got a meeting at noon that I'm not sure I can actually just postpone. The last few times I've been able to always rearrange my schedule around Mr. Ford's schedule, because obviously he's a far more important person than the rest of us Ontarians, because even though he gives us a time, he never shows up on time. But before we get into me griping about more random shit, I'd love to hear from you guys. Have police been stopping people in your parks? Have you been going out into the wild world out there? Are you noticing people kind of giving up on masks outdoors? Have you been following along with some of the new news that kind of makes it sound like masks may not actually be quite as effective as people would like to hope they are? Let us know in the comment section. But before I jump into our classic theme song here, I see a few of you guys are asking about curfews. What we're essentially talking, and I'll pull up some news stories in a second here, is like Alberta passed some new measures, which essentially allows them to pass curfews in hotspots if they so choose. And, Doug Ford right now just asked the federal government to implement more restrictions at land border crossings here in Ontario. So again, it seems like we're definitely going to get some new rules. And my biggest question, as always, is what are those new rules going to be? What are the rules? Classic Ontario. I'm just curious, when are you guys going to get tired of this? Because, I'm getting pretty tired at this point in time. If you guys have been following me on Twitter, I think I'm pretty soon going to just set an arbitrary date where if the rest of my Canadians don't show me clearly that we're all sick of this, maybe being a Canadian's not the right plan. I don't know. Let me know what your guys' approach is. Are you just going to move out into the woods? Are you going to move to Texas or Florida? And any predictions on what our new rules are going to be? Because the world has definitely gone insane, in my opinion, or at least the world around us seems to have. So again, love to hear your guys' thoughts and comments, but I'm going to pull up a couple articles here that we can just kind of discuss together. So let's first talk about Alberta and their potential curfews here. So this is an article from CBC News, came out yesterday afternoon, right? So this is a little bit of old news, but essentially, as the third wave of COVID-19 pandemic set new records on Thursday, Alberta's premier announced targeted public health measures intended to slow the spread of the disease. So the province reported 2,000 new cases on Thursday, the highest single-day total since the pandemic began in March 2020. And Premier Kenney warned Albertans that in the curve continues to rise, more stringent measures, including curfews, might be necessary. So where needed, so down here at the bottom, guys, where needed, we will implement a curfew where cases or case rates are significantly high, specifically if cases are 1,000 or more per 100,000 population, and in cases where the municipal government requests it. So I guess the one thing I just need to know is curfew more, or is COVID more deadly at night? Does it pounce on people? Is it a real predator at night? What do curfews actually really accomplish? Do they have any information showing that curfews are effective to helping fight the spread of COVID? Or is it really just about signaling to people? At this point in time, it just seems like the government wants to remind us who's in power. I don't know if you guys get that sense, and maybe that's just me and my inner libertarian, but it actually is quite frustrating in my opinion. And I'd love to know, have you guys attended any protests? Are you following along with Randy Hillier here in Ontario? And to me, seeing the reporters and Randy and a few others on Twitter posting dozens of tickets and fines from the government, I'm glad that they're sharing those as badges of honor at this point in time, because I think that it's time that we all let each other know, as game theory would dictate, create some common knowledge here that this is not okay. We're not okay with this, and things need to change drastically and quickly. But again, love to hear your thoughts and your comments. So jump in there, guys. But let's talk about some of the new this is in relation to today's virtual news conference. So again, presumably we're going to get an update here around 11 a.m. So one day after his government released modeling data showing that while the third wave may be cresting, the situation remains precarious. I know that some of those measures, especially around enforcement, they went too far. Ford said last Thursday. Remember when we covered it last Thursday? But I kind of forget, did they remove those measures or did they just say they went too far and kind of left them there lingering? And do we still have essentially checkpoints at provincial borders? Yeah, I'm pretty sure we actually still do have those as well. So at the time, this office said that Ford had tested, and so this is going, he's been in quarantine now for 10 days, if you guys didn't notice. And, at the time, his office said that Ford had tested negative for the disease and will be following the guidance of Toronto Public Health. A spokesperson reiterated on April 29th that the premier is in good health, symptom-free, expected to be out of isolation early next week as per public health guidelines. So, he's been holed up for 10 days, even though he tested negative and he's got the vaccine. It's hard for me to not want to jump to conclusions there and think like, is this either just virtue signaling, trying to show everyone like, hey, look, I'm going through troubles too because I have to quarantine? Or if this is just like him wanting to not have to deal with all of us plebs constantly asking for our rights and freedoms back. Again, love to hear your thoughts and your comments. And then, so jumping over to CBC, I wanted to cover this article here where came out yesterday evening, essentially, Ford asking federal government to extend the 3-day mandatory quarantine to land borders. And I've got some real concerns here because they didn't explicitly spell this out, but if this is going to impact every person that travels land borders, I imagine that can't be the case. But if it is, that's going to do a huge crunch on our entire supply chain, right? And so again, I haven't found any direct notes there. So if you guys find something saying that either will transport truck drivers, will they be held to this same thing? Are they going to have to hold up 3 days crossing the international border, or is this just for international travelers? So just people that aren't necessarily deemed essential workers. Love to hear any references if you guys came across stuff, because I don't think I saw anything explicitly here. But here's a quote from the article. So we are requesting the implementation of a mandatory 3-day hotel quarantine in federally designated hotels at the highest traffic crossings, including those in Niagara, Windsor, Sarnia, and Brockville. Ontario Deputy Premier Christine Elliott and Solicitor General Jones said in the letter, some of these crossings include the Rainbow Bridge and Niagara Falls are located in close proximity to other crossings. It is important that all travelers in these regions are met with the same quarantine requirements to ensure that all points of entry are protected. So again, I just haven't seen anything that said whether our supply chain is impacted by this or not. But if it is, our supply chain is going to get decimated if transportation, if every single vehicle crossing the border, I just don't see how that's not going to have massive implications. But again, love to hear your thoughts, your opinions. Let me know in the comments section. I'm going to start my screen share here and see what's going on in the comments, guys. Peter's going to keep us updated when the live stream actually starts. So if you see it, let us know in the comments. But Peter's also keeping an eye out. Navi here saying they were tired of it last year. Yeah, I can understand that. Nathan's asking, why do we need new rules? Yeah, I think that that's going to be a good question, especially because if you guys have been following along, the modeling they were originally projecting with to put us under this most recent quarantine doesn't seem to be coming to fruition. So I'm sure they'll point to that as a win. But at the same time, I think a lot of us will point to that as maybe your modeling's not the silver bullet that you guys like to think it is all the time. So I'm just going to try and pull up here as well some of my favorite people on Twitter that really talk about the Ontario stats specifically. Melhouse Van Houten's definitely one of them. So let's see what he has to say on the Twitterverse. Just pulling that up. So again, if you guys aren't following along, I'd encourage you to do so. He's also, him and a group of other Twitterers have started a new newsletter called The Old Normal Ontario. I haven't really read all the articles and stuff, but read a couple and enjoyed it. So I'd encourage you guys to check it out if you're interested in maybe learning a little bit more or understanding their perspective. I didn't actually get a chance to read this one, but I thought this was important. Like, don't be so smug, Canada. I think oftentimes it can be really easy for us as Canadians to get very smug and just assume a superior perspective compared to our American neighbors. And honestly, I think that that's just kind of distilled into us at a young age, that somehow like Canadians are like Americans, but nicer and better somehow. And at the end of the day, we're all just people. But here's a thread here, just kind of breaking down what's been reported so far. And so this would be as of April 30th, so ending this week. So that's perfect. So again, just looking at some of the data here, we can see the 7-day moving average seems to be overall trending down here. We've also got cases by reported date, seems to really be trending down. Seems like we crested a little bit ago. And then as we move in here, again, this is what's strange to me, just like these massive countrywide lockdowns, when obviously it's not universally distributed equally. So I guess there's specifically our Ontario COVID-19 cases, deaths, and hospitalization rates. So again, the 7-day moving average for daily new hospitalizations, like unless there's a misreporting here, it just seems to be plummeting. Like, I don't understand how that even happens. But the one thing that's interesting, if you guys have been following along, it might take me a while to find the tweet, but there's been a few people digging into the new deaths that come out when they're reporting COVID deaths, as well as other factors. And I guess like we've already known about some of the issues with comorbidities, but then what they've also been breaking down or showing is essentially like, how long ago was it that you were diagnosed with COVID? And at what point in time is it no longer relevant? So if it was like 3 months ago you were diagnosed with it and you pass away 3 months later, is that attributed to a COVID death or not? So again, I really enjoy following along with a handful of these accounts, just because, again, not saying they always get it right either. I think probably very few people get it right 100% of the time, but it is important to be looking at different perspectives. And again, when we're looking here at age stratification of overall deaths in Canada 2019 and COVID-19 deaths in 2020 to 21, again, it's like, unless we're looking at the 70 plus crowd, it really isn't that significant. It doesn't really make a ripple overall. And I know that can be hard to hear if you're one of the people that's unfortunately touched by it at a younger age or at a different point in time. Okay, so Doug Ford's already delayed till noon. God damn it. Why even set times? Oh my God.
You want me to reach out?
All right.
See, or?
Yeah. What do you guys think? Should we continue going live here and wait for Doug to show up at noon? Should I just admit defeat and cancel this live stream and go about my day and be productive? Let me know in the comments section. I do appreciate those of you that join these live streams and jump in the comments and share your perspectives. Curfews have been in place for months in some countries in Europe. Yeah. I live in Quebec. Everyone here seems to dislike curfew, but they don't talk about it, act as if they don't care about all the measures. Yeah, and I can definitely understand that perspective and why people sometimes want to position themselves as being indifferent or like, I'm just going to get through it no matter what. But that's where I think a lot of us concerned with the slippery slope argument notice just the continually layering on of additional requirements, additional rules, additional restrictions. And it's just hard to imagine when they're going to allow us to go back to normal, right? At what point? It would just be so much easier, I think, for those of us that are concerned about losing our liberties, if they could give us a black and white answer to when does life go back to normal. And it's such a moving target. And if you recently have been following some of the discussions going on in the UK, like some of the most concerning clips I'm seeing is essentially people saying like, well, there's still variants. So we essentially can't go back to normal until all the variants are under control. And if you kind of take this to its logical conclusion of variants are probably here to stay and COVID-19 overall is probably here to stay, that means that there is no going back to normal. And I think that that's what, some of the pundits on Twitter, like Milhouse Van Houten with his, what was it again? Old Normal Ontario. I think that that's really what they're trying to highlight is if we're not careful here, we may never find our way back to where we once were. And again, not saying that it was perfect back in the day, but I really don't think we're headed in the direction of perfect either. Lorenzo's concerned about the critical thinking of his fellow Canucks. Yeah, and at the same time, I think there's also a lot of people that we take pride as Canadians in not wanting to rock the boat and being polite and, wanting to be respectful. And so we want to give people the benefit of the doubt. And honestly, I think that I applaud Canadians for giving the government and medical officials the benefit of the doubt for as long as you have. But at the same time, I think there comes a point where you have to rein them back in. And this medical dictatorship is just very concerning. Very concerning. Lorenzo saying he doesn't think Doug will show up till 12:30 or 1 p.m. That seems quite possible. Ian's telling me get back to work and be productive. Appreciate it, Ian. Navi's saying he'll tune back in an hour. But yeah, Tara saying appreciate what you do, but have a life. Yeah, Authentic Barber. One, hey, it's been a while, but two, good to see you in the comments here. It's amazing how quick our reality can change. Absolutely. And I think, one, it's important to realize that's always been the case, but it seems more heightened in this 24-hour news cycle, in the, extremely polarizing bipartisanship and just the right versus left and just all the different aspects that seem to be going on in our current society. It really is shocking how quickly things can go to the extreme. And I guess I'd love to kind of explore that a little bit further with you guys while we're chatting here. What are your thoughts overall on thinking about, are you reacting faster, I guess, is the question I wanted to ask. So for me, I do feel like reality is changing faster than I ever would have imagined 5, 10, 20 years ago. And I feel kind of compelled to want to react faster as well. So if you guys have been paying attention to me at all on social media, I've been throwing myself into Bitcoin and really just trying to understand the perspective of a lot of Bitcoin maximalists. And I also understand altcoiners and NFTs and things of that nature, because my faith in the system is not growing stronger. I'll tell you that much. In fact, I really like the idea of finding an alternative option when it comes to what's currently going on, because constantly waiting to find out what the rules just absolutely drives me crazy. So we're just going to take a quick second here and figure out whether we can actually reorganize my schedule and whether it makes sense for me to keep going live here. So while I figure that out, I'm just going to leave you guys with a little bit of our theme song here of what are the rules, because Doug Ford's going to hold us till 12 or till 12, probably 12:30 at this point. Okay. All right, guys. So if you've got any predictions on what you think the next set of rules are going to be, let us know in the comment section. And also love to know, are you guys following along with what's going on with Grace Life Church out in Alberta? Some of the extreme measures they seem to be taking there, again, I find very concerning. But always love your perspective. Dom saying Matt McKeever news is the only news to trust in 2021. I appreciate that. I definitely think there are some other great sources out there. So if you guys haven't been following along with Mark at Canada Poly or Poly, I've been, I don't know why I always say that, but it's just how my brain works. Canada Poly. But yeah, if you jump over to his channel, I think he's doing a great live stream every single week. So again, just a reminder, this is his page there. You can go to new posts and you can always find a new live stream where essentially it's just kind of him going through news articles and sharing his opinion. I think, news outlets like Rebel News are more important than they ever have been before. I think also Twitter can be a fantastic source for information and perspective when wanting to understand what's going on in Canada. And so again, I encourage you guys to spend a bit of time there. I really overlooked Twitter for a long time, and I didn't see it as being productive, but these days, I think it's more important than ever. I think Kelly Brown does a great job as well of just breaking down some data and sharing his perspective. So again, it looks like that's a little bit older, but I love the fact that he's always covering what's going on in our ICUs. So looking at what's going on with ICU admissions here in Ontario, again, we can see it seems like it really is tapering off from the daily new ICU admission. So, hey, maybe it turns out I'm completely overblowing things, and maybe Doug Ford is going to tell us everything's about to go back to normal because trust the science and trust the data. A man can hope and dream, right? And yeah. Again, I think Old Normal is cool to check out, and definitely follow along with some of the Rebel news reporters on Twitter. I think can also be a great source. But love to hear, where do you guys turn for your news? You guys have heard me talk about the Blaze and Mug Club with Louder with Crowder. I think that that's also a great source. Again, if you just want perspective, Dave Rubin. But it doesn't mean that you should find yourself in an echo chamber on either side of the aisle. I think it is important to be open to all and new information. However, at the same time, I think that mainstream media these days, unfortunately, a lot of their news needs to be taken with more than just a grain of salt. Yeah, BTC and becoming a global person. This is something that we've maybe chatted about, in a small degree here on the channel in the past. And for anyone jumping in right now, just a reminder, it's been delayed till noon now, the announcement from Doug Ford. So it was originally scheduled for 11 a.m., but classic them, they delayed it by an hour. I wonder, should we just offer our services to do their live streams, Peter? And maybe we can at least get some government money out of this whole shenanigan, because we seem to be able to go, we don't even find out until I check Twitter in the morning that there's going to be a press conference, and then we're able to be live and flowing here. And again, hey guys, StreamYards, you can even get a free membership for the province of Ontario. So if you guys are pinching pennies right now, don't even worry about it. But circling back to what Authentic Barbers was saying here, yeah, I think that it's definitely a train of thought that I've been exploring more and more, is how important is being a Canadian to your personal ego or identity? And is it something that is immutable for you, or is it just another label that gets applied to you and you're not particularly attached to that label? And one of the reasons I bring it up, or I want to explore it with you guys, is some of the more frustrating pundits or counterpoints or arguers of maybe my perspective and the desire of liberty here in Canada will sometimes argue that, hey, you technically don't have a complete, freedom of speech. We don't necessarily have the exact same rights and freedoms that America does. And yeah, technically I get what you're saying, but I always thought we just had kind of an unspoken agreement that Canada was America light. We were essentially America, but we were just a bit more polite, and we're going to try and be slightly nicer. And, that didn't mean that we actually want to be subjects to the Queen, or that we want politicians to control every aspect of our life. But it scares me when I see some of you guys on Twitter and in the comments section saying that, no, that's legitimately what you would like. And, those sort of moments do make me want to question and explore whether I want to think about being a Canadian, whether I want to still have that tied to my identity, or whether I want to decouple from it and really just be Matt McKeever doing Matt McKeever, living and abiding by his own rules and his own moral compass. Yeah. So love to get your guys' thoughts and perspective on that. So are you Canadian through and through and you'll never leave Canada come hell or high water? Is it, no, if Canada changes, I'm willing to leave? Or if Canada changes, are you going to fight no matter what? Love to hear your thoughts, your opinions in that comment section. And again, if you've got other sources for alternative news, or maybe even mainstream reporters that you love, that you think really are open, honest, and transparent, let us know in the comment section, because I think it is valuable to share with each other where we turn to in order to really make sense of what's going on in the world around us. Because, if you're feeling like it's a crazy world, you're probably not alone. You probably just need to find a few other kindred spirits. Yeah, Jeff, 100% agree with that. They do not respect their time at all. In fact, I actually find it just so insulting, right? You literally lock us down in our houses. You force us into all these rules and regulations because it's the end of the world as we know it, at least according to you. and then you can't even show up for your own press conference. And to the best of my knowledge, this press conference was only announced at 8 a.m. this morning. So like, if it's only announced at 8 a.m., why not just give yourself enough time to be able to show up in a timely manner? And I haven't checked, like, are they doing the sort of thing right now, Peter, where they always just bring on like a doctor to preamble, or is it literally just a dead feed?
I'm on the hunt right now. I sent you a link where it's just banner with live event to be in shortly.
Gotcha.
But no pre-show.
So yeah, so they're not even giving us a pre-show here or pre-fight or anything. This is just ridiculous.
I sent you a good meme on Facebook.
Okay, I'll check it out. Alice says, I want to see Ford fake crying again live. Yeah, again, like I do appreciate when politicians apologize, but those apologies sometimes fall flat with me when you don't then take back all the crazy rules you implemented. Like, apologizing after the fact and not changing your ways doesn't really give me a lot of certainty or comfort, or it's hard for me to want to take your apology serious, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I'd love to hear, did you guys take Doug Ford's apology serious? And I would just love for him to apologize for all the time he's wasted, both of mine and your time, in regards to telling us one thing and then constantly showing up late. I mean, if you can't even schedule your day, Mr. Ford, why should we really let you be in charge of anything? Because again, I'll be honest, I thought I was going to have a light day this morning. So like when I woke up, I waked and baked. And yet I'm still able to be here right now live on stream because I was like, hey, I don't have a lot of meetings. Most of my meetings are kind of creative oriented today. I'm just going to get into that creative mindset. And now I'm drinking green tea just so I can stay a little more focused and a little bit less creative. But speaking of creative, oh, okay, I see what's going on. Yeah, I'm going to pull up that meme right meow once I find my mouse. And so Peter's been deep diving for some memes for us. And here we've got Mr. Doug Ford or Mr. Doug Bubbles. Well, boys, she's all fact up now. Yeah, that feels true. Whether we're talking about their live stream or about the entire state of our province, either one actually is true at this point in time. Lisa, appreciate you jumping in the comments there. I'm not attached to the Canadian label at all. Yeah. And again, that's something that I don't know if I would have felt comfortable saying 10, 15, 20 years ago. I think that I really saw that Canadian label as something that I wore with pride and really meant something to me. And again, I'm not trying to make this like shit on Canada, because I still think like you guys can go back and watch previous videos pre-COVID where I'm just like, I literally believe Canada's the best country in the world. Like we've got all the natural resources. We've only got one land border. We've got such a low population density. We've got such a variety of geography and climates. There's so many reasons to love Canada. But at the same time, our politicians, that's a whole other basket of rotten apples, in my opinion, compared to Canada, the people, and the landmass. Dom says he's dipping as soon as he gets enough cash. Cam, Jay, and the kids are asking, who else is leaving and where are you going? Yeah, this is something I'm regularly talking about at this point in time. I personally really like the idea of Texas, because at this point in time, I like the idea of buying a bunch of land and having some space and just room to stretch and, have me and mine all just on a compound. That sounds really fun and practical, sadly, at this point in time. But I would be lying if I didn't say I think there's some really cool stuff going on in Miami. And I think that Miami is going to become the Bitcoin capital of at least the US, if not the world. And I think about the sort of crazy innovation that we saw with Silicon Valley. And what sort of crazy innovation do you think will crop up around Bitcoin, crypto, and just everything going on in that space of blockchain? Because I think that there is a lot of opportunities, a lot of interesting things that will develop. And it just seems like both the mayor of Miami, the city of Miami, and a lot of the people of Miami just get it. And the energy there and the vibe just seems so interesting. So right now, I'd be lying if I didn't say I kind of have this dream of getting that giant Texas compound and then like a cool Miami pad. That seems like the best of both worlds. But definitely Texas and Florida is high on my list. Pre-COVID, I would probably put Puerto Rico as one of my high targets. And I still don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I haven't really looked into what Puerto Rico's been like during COVID. So I'd have to do a lot more due diligence before that stayed at the top of my list at this point in time. Cam J and the kids were saying, I'm not sure if fighting will make a difference anymore, and everyone would have to get up and fight for change. Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at, where I'm like, I kind of want to set an arbitrary date for myself, where I'm like, if by X date things haven't got better, Canada hasn't spoken out, I don't feel like all my other fellow Canadians are on the same page with me. That's maybe when like the idea of decoupling from that identity becomes easier for me, I guess, at least. So again, I'm not saying you guys should decouple from that identity. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying that I think it's a conversation and a thought worth having at this point in time. And if you guys happen to be watching this from Texas, from Florida, or anywhere else outside of Canada, what are your thoughts? What are your opinions? Where do you think some of the best places to live are right now? And it's funny, pre-COVID, I would have totally picked like New Zealand and Australia as being like Canada equivalents. And now I'm like, oh my God, I would never want to live in New Zealand. Like they're just going to become like a tiny little isolationist states, right? Where like they just let no one in, no one out. Sure, they can have their like, was it like a 10,000 or 50,000 person conference? But like if you literally live in just like complete isolation where it's only you and your fellow Kiwis, again, like there's just so much power that you're giving the government that I can't see that not seeping into other aspects of life eventually. And that's really where all my concern stems from when it comes to giving governments power. Because I get it. I don't think that the majority of government officials are evil people that just have terrible intentions. But I think a lot of their good intentions actually lead to the path of hell. Dom saying Dallas or Miami. So yeah, I think like the Dallas-Fort Worth area seems pretty cool. I kind of even like parts of just like way out middle of nowhere, kind of rural Texas. But again, that's me. I also could see temptations to wanting to go to like Giga, Texas, right? Or the areas where SpaceX is building out and right near the border there. There seems to be a lot of interesting opportunities. And I guess one train of thought I've been exploring with myself is if I think that, again, the reason I kind of want to set that arbitrary date, I guess, is if I think that this is inevitable, at least that say Miami becomes the Bitcoin capital and Texas becomes the freedom capital of the United States, that maybe I want to get in early, right? Like maybe I want to like not wait until like all the Canadians are thinking this and all the Canadians are moving there. But again, if you are Canadian, you're thinking about this, love to hear what is your plan. Are you looking into applying for a green card? Are you just thinking of being a snowbird for a bit and then trying to figure it out afterwards? Are you just going to try and become a dreamer and claim political asylum from the communist country of Canada? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. Nathan saying Texas for sure, and saying Gigafactory, Austin Gigafactory. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of interesting opportunities there, and part of me wants to get in on it. Hey, John, looks like you maybe just joined right now. I'm not saying that there is absolutely a curfew here. What we were originally referencing, and for anyone that wants to jump back earlier in the live stream, Alberta announced recently new restrictions and new rules, and those rules include the ability to enact curfews in hotspots at the government's discretion. And so one of the things we were exploring is Mr. Ford told us he was going to announce at 11 a.m., although he didn't show up, that there are new rules and regulations that are going to be put in place for us Canadians, and in essence, us Ontario Canadians, and we're just still kind of waiting to see what happens. So one of the ideas I was exploring is, could we potentially be looking at more extreme measures like a curfew? Because I just imagine Ontario's looking at Alberta now enviously, and they're like, wait, what? He got away with passing a curfew? God damn, I need to get on that action. So that's just me being a little bit suspicious of our government officials, but we don't actually know yet what the new rules are because, they love to keep us in suspense. That tends to be the only thing they're good at, is keeping us on our toes, keeping us wondering what's going on. But hey, you shouldn't be at your job anyway, so it's not like you got anything better to do than just wait around for your government to tell you what to do next. So here we are. Total Tech saying we're all looking to leave. And Gene's asking, you speak alone? I'm not sure what that means, Gene, whether you mean, am I just talking to myself right now? But yes, I am talking to you guys. And I've also got Peter behind the scenes here. But that's about it. We're just all by our lonesome because we're supposed to be quarantined or social distancing, right? And you're not supposed to leave your house unless it's for an emergency, comrade. So we're doing our best here to be good chattels of our government. Investor visa. Yeah, I've been Googling that a bit. Doesn't look, actually looks pretty practical to me. So if anyone knows any specialists, any, consulting firms or lawyers that specialize in helping Canadians become Americans, love for a recommendation. And hey, if you happen to be that sort of consultant or lawyer and you'd like to talk about sponsorship, I'm sure there's a lot of individuals on my channel that are interested in your services, and I'd love to do a couple of videos and a deep dive. So feel free to slide into those DMs, or if you guys have someone, feel free to recognize us or recommend them as well. Alice is looking for a husband with the ranch in Texas. I love you already. Apply within. That's hilarious. Jason says he wants to move to Texas. I like Montana also. I like Montana. I haven't been following what their rules are during COVID though. So definitely, yeah, always loved like Montana, North Dakota, all those parts. They also just kind of feel like Canada-ish. So totally agree with you there. Because again, I actually really like Canada. I just don't like our politicians. Nevada. So yeah, Nevada seems cool too. And it would be kind of neat to live in Nevada, especially, now that Graham Stephan and a bunch of other YouTubers are moving out there. I think that Las Vegas is going to become more and more popular as well. So, but I think that there's something special going on in Texas and Florida and Miami in particular right now. So Flora F is saying we can fight, but it has to be organized. Ideally, we would need a team full of lawyers and fight. Yeah, and so there are, movements. I think Rebel News has Fight the Fees, right? So that's one aspect that, if you guys want to learn more about that, definitely check out Fight the Fees. Let me just see if I can even, if that is the right domain, but something like that. And Fight the Fees. Pull up my screen share. So, Fight the Fees, Canadian Federation of Fight the Fees. Oh, this isn't, let me be a little bit more Randy Hill here. Maybe it's just right here. Anyways, it's something like that. I think fightthefees.ca. Let's just see if that's it. Fightthefees.ca.
We have CBC Lorenda on Twitter saying the multiple changes due to the times are not about politics, but the weather. It's incredibly windy, and their tent apparently blew over, causing the delay.
All right. Well, in case you guys didn't hear that from Peter, apparently CBC News is reporting the current delay from the Doug Ford government is it is windy outside and their tent got blown over. I wonder if they ever thought about just doing it inside. I don't know. That just seems like a crazy radical idea, but
we should live stream the chaos.
Yeah, it would be kind of fun at least to live stream the chaos. Give us some entertainment at least. Okay, that looks like that's not the one I want. So, what is it? Now I'm kind of wondering what it is. Let me see. What is that Rebel News reporter's name? So yeah, if you guys haven't been following along with what's going on with the Grace Life Church, I would encourage you to check out like savearter.com and let me see, where's the save fees? So I think Yakov posted about it recently. But again, you can also go to like Lockdown Reports. I think him and Randy were posting back and forth all the fees that they've received. So again, I think, looking at some of the organizations like that can be a good option if you're looking for someone that's already doing something. Same with Old Normal Ontario. I think that we are starting to see people getting sick and starting to organize in a more effective manner, which is great to see. God damn, I could have sworn I just saw this tweet from him, but he is prolific, I guess. Yeah, I pretty much with Steven Crowder on this one. The idea of like get vaccinated or don't, I don't give a shit. And also, I couldn't believe the controversy around Joe Rogan. So I'd love to hear what your guys' thoughts were in regards to Joe Rogan's comments when it came to young people and vaccines as well. Izzy Eats says 38 million migration to the USA. Yeah, maybe we can get a bulk discount if just all of Canada moves to the US in one giant jump. I don't know if you guys have been following along, but is it Bill C-10 that's the new one where they're looking to restrict all the rules and stuff? But yeah, here's what where they're finding the fees. So I guess it is lockdownreports.com. But, this to me, those are just badges of honor at this point in time for the reporters and politicians that are standing up and fighting it. For anyone that forgot, on my one live stream, when they first announced it, I also said that if you guys, the first follower of mine, if you get a ticket and you can't pay it or don't want to pay it, send me a DM on social and I would help you out because I would gladly buy it off you and just frame it as a badge of honor. Because again, it is just wild to me that reporters are getting so many of these tickets when just trying to report on what's going on in the world. Again, that doesn't mean that I agree with all their politics or that they're perfect individuals, but it means that like they should have the right to go out and report on what the fuck's going on in our country. So again, there are, you can help fund the lockdown reporting. I thought there was something though that was directly just fight the fees. So maybe there is still something else also. If you guys know what the hell I'm talking about, let me know in the comment section. So Nathan saying, yeah, it's the C-10 bill is the full-on censorship bill. And it is wild. Like, essentially, that censorship bill would mean, like, a lot of the content I do that's not real estate would no longer, that's not what I meant to do, would no longer exist. And it blows my mind that we can't have an opinion anymore and that you can't share it. And the fact that, when the government or mainstream media reports something and gets it wrong, it's an honest mistake. But if individual citizens were to do that it's somehow wrong or, completely unacceptable. And we need to be protected from our own thoughts and our own opinions. Just like wild, in my opinion. Yeah, great question, Tech. Why can't the government start a live stream on schedule? You would think after a year of this, they might be able to get their shit together. That's interesting. We could all be climate refugees. It's a thing. There you go, John Stone. I like it. Iced Coffee saying, I turned TV off a decade ago and have never felt healthier. Yeah, I'm curious. Do you guys still have like a cable or satellite subscription to mainstream media? I'm trying to think, like, when I bought my very first house back in 2010, I think at the time my plan was not to get cable, but one of my roommates was obsessed with sports, so he insisted. So I got cable as a negotiation with him. I think we had it for maybe a year or 2 years, and then he moved out. So like since like 2012, I haven't had like a TV subscription or anything like that. I'd say a couple of years ago, I got Netflix and then Amazon Prime. And those are kind of the sources for entertainment outside of like subscriptions to like Mug Club or other content creators like Steven Crowder. But yeah, I'd love to hear, do you guys still have regular TV and mainstream media in your household? Are you regularly consuming it? Is it just for laughs, in your opinion? You just kind of sit there and drink every time they say something stupid, and now you're an alcoholic because of that, and maybe you can go after them for it. BTC Pump. So if you guys are interested in grabbing some Bitcoin, there will be a Shakepay link in the video description down below. I do encourage you guys to learn about Bitcoin. Don't blindly just jump into it, but read the white paper, read the article, The Bullish Case for Bitcoin, read the book or listen to the audio book, The Bitcoin Standard. We're right now doing the Bitcoin Standard in my book club. So if you guys didn't know, I do a book club with my employees and team members, and we're usually doing 2 books at any given point in time. So right now we're revisiting what I call my Bible, the Early Retirement Extreme book. And we're also reading the Bitcoin Standard. So 2 great books, and definitely encourage you guys to check them out. But yeah, I think that now's a good time to be stacking sats. In fact, I don't even think I've shaken my phone today. So because I've got the Shakepay, if I shake my phone here, I'll get some free sats. So let's see. I think this will be like day 17 for me or whatever. Didn't shake enough. All right. My app's a little glitchy, apparently.
I hit day 10 today.
God. Oh, there we go. Finally. 17-day streak. 380 Satoshis. So boom, there we go. Just got 380 sats that I just stacked. But yeah, wherever you guys go buy your Bitcoin, I think it is a good time to be learning about informing yourself. Dan saying the truckers can't even get their stuff together to protest ridiculous rules and laws. He was a trucker for 10 years in the USA. So yeah, Bill C-10 is not passed yet. Yeah, if you want to look into it, there's some great commenters on Twitter. They're fighting against it. I believe Rebel News is fighting against it because Rebel News knows that they're essentially going to be like pushed off the Canadian internet if that bill was to be passed. So John saying he cut off cable 15 years ago. Yeah, definitely organization needs to occur in order to help that. Yeah, we've touched upon, some of the medications in the past, Dan, and I've shared with you a couple on previous live streams, some doctors I follow here in Ontario and some of their frustrations about that. So told Texas, no TV for me. Tribune says hasn't headed for 10 plus years. Yeah, internet's way better. Jesse says, fuck no, everyone in my family is giving up cable. Blockchain Mac is saying there's an ETH pump. Yeah, ETH is definitely going to the moon right now, it seems like. What do you guys think of my little airplane? Have you noticed that in the background, our Low Problems for Profits airplane? Or now that we've got the flag also fluttering here? And I think if we pause and stare really closely, the clouds move. Or maybe they don't. Oh, yeah, there they go. Totally pirate the Mandalorian, though. That's funny. You know what's interesting? Like, I think just with time, like, there's always different perspectives, and you kind of come at things with a different time value of money and everything. So, like, definitely in my college years, I felt like the pirate's life for me when it came to content. As I've kind of matured and, once you build up capital and you've got some disposable income, the idea of pirating stuff now just seems like a pain in the ass. So I don't do it anymore. So like if I can't easily find it for free or get it through my paid subscriptions, I usually just shrug. There's not even that much content now that like to me is must-see TV that 100% you need to do or watch or consume in order to be culturally relevant at this point in time. Oh, appreciate the super chat there, Dan. Putting my money where my mouth is. All right. Yeah, definitely appreciate it, and do encourage everyone to do your research. I think the number one thing, the thing that always blows my mind is when people get upset when I talk about like vitamin D. And it's just like, I don't understand who you think got to me, the big sun lobby or the big D lobby. Because again, it just, it's free. It's easy to get. And worst case scenario is you just got a little bit of extra vitamin D. Whereas a lot of the people that, want to just tell you stay at home, don't worry about exercising, just listen to the government. It's so frustrating because at this point in time, it sounds so insincere, right? Like it's just so obvious that they're just pushing a narrative that they're not interested in the actual situation we find ourselves in. And this desire to create a dependency from the majority of Canadians on the government is just, there will be long-term consequences to this. There will absolutely be long-term consequences. And we should be paying attention and be aware of those long-term consequences. Even if you as an individual decide that the long-term consequences are worth it, at least be informed about it. Where far too often I just find people parroting whatever they heard on mainstream media, right? Trust the science. Okay, but does that mean like just your science or all the science, And it would be really refreshing if politicians and the Ontario Science Table and other medical professionals that are turned towards as leaders in this time, if they would admit when things are changing and that things are dynamic and that they may not always get things right, where oftentimes it just feels like there's this desire to erase the past or erase any misjudgment that they might have had in regards to policy or restrictions or rules and regulations. And again, it just blows my mind that that they think so little of us, I suspect. And again, even things like just delaying this call, right? Like how silly and frustrating is this? But this is just the tip of the iceberg compared to everything that goes on in this day-to-day world. And the absurdity of it almost numbs us in my opinion, right? Like, it's just so absurd. It's so easy to become comfortably numb with what's going on, and so frustrating that they think they can just get away with it indefinitely. Blockchain Max, appreciate the super chat. I think a lot of people now, such as myself, rather follow content creators on YouTube than Hollywood celebrities. Yeah, and again, it's important to understand, like, our content creators, I appreciate those of you that follow me. I appreciate the content creators I follow. Each one of us is still human. Each one of us is still fallible. No one's got a perfect answer or a silver bullet to everything. But I think a lot of content creators at least are willing to admit that they're fallible, that they may sometimes get it wrong, and that they're just exploring their ideas, their opinions, and their perspective. And it's refreshing when we hear people talking honestly, right? Like, it's refreshing to hear Joe Rogan say something that's clearly not a talking point that was just handed to him. And now I'm not saying that Joe Rogan is a puppet for anyone, but I'm saying that there's a lot of other celebrities, a lot of other politicians that it really does seem like they've got someone's hand up their ass. And it's hard to not imagine that the words they speak are ringing hollow in their own ears. So, yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate that there's 150 of you guys hanging out with us right now on the live stream. If you're enjoying this, smash the like button, hit subscribe. Even if you're not enjoying this, just smash the like button for the engagement's sake, or you can also hit the down like button if you really need to, because it still counts. But yeah, Navi's saying everyone's going to need a VPN in Canada once C10 goes through. Again, that won't necessarily even solve everything. Yeah, Ricky had a great point and said it best to the actors. There's no, so Told Tech saying there's no changing course in Canada. We know where this is going. I'd like to think that we're still at an inflection point. I'd like to think that things can still be corrected and still can be changed. So essentially, reminder, guys, we're expecting them to go live at noon today. Hopefully, they actually do go live. And yeah, I got a meeting at noon. I'm still just debating with myself what I should do. Kind of want to see what stupidness is going to come out of their mouth, but at the same time, it's not going to change the world, is it? Yeah, Peter, if you don't mind, maybe send that email and just see if there's a way where either I can join it after. Actually, let me quickly see what else is in my calendar after that, though.
I think Trudeau's going live as well right now, too. So I've had a stream ready, and it had the same kind of banner, but something just changed here, so I can send that as well, too.
Okay, so yeah, it also sounds like Justin Trudeau might go live. Maybe this is going to be kind of a joint announcement about the federal government stepping in a bigger way or something. We've definitely heard and seen a bunch of rumors about that before.
Just sent it on Facebook, but nothing's happening yet. We're just got the camera looking at flags where it looks like he's going to.
All right, let's send that email, Peter, and I'll just saying that I'll do a makeup call at some point next week, and they can schedule it or whatever. Yeah, thanks, government. The number of meetings I've had to cancel because of Doug Ford is actually getting absurd now. We should just have a little meeting counter in the corner every time I go live. So let me just get this up here for you guys. So a drop in the bucket. Canada pledges $10 million to. Oh, is that what this is about? Is this just about India COVID? Oh, okay. No, it's going to be a general one. It just looks like that's the title. All right. We don't got anything going on now. It's frozen. Perfect. That seems like classic Canada live streams here. Let us know if you guys have a live stream that looks like it's working or that's got something going on. I'm going to open up. I don't know if you sent some other ones there.
Working for me, and Trudeau just walked up right
Okay. Trudeau's on screen. Okay, let me get a refresh here. Huh.
We just started.
Premier ministre Freeland.
Fuck's sakes.
La ministre
Deputy
Anand,
Prime Minister
ainsi que la
Freeland,
docteur
Minister
Tam
Anand,
et le docteur.
All right, we're going to get this working. I'm going to close some of my tabs, close some of the other shit. Hopefully we can get our stream going here. Come on. I understand why this is so hard. Is it working on yours, Peter? Still?
I closed it out to allow you to get on it, but so I can share my screen.
Yeah, because if here we go.
We'll be reaching out to their officials today.
Fuck's sakes, this is goddamn frustrating. Yeah, let's try it on your computer because I want to hear what he's saying. So if it gets working for you, Peter, just hijack it. Oh,
There are consequences for anyone breaking these rules. Yesterday, in addition to all this, Deputy Prime Minister Freeland provided an update on the budget as well. I also took the opportunity to congratulate Premier Silver of Yukon on his re-election. I look forward to continuing to work with him on everything from the fight against climate change and creating affordable childcare to our commitment on building a stronger relationship with Indigenous peoples. In fact, I'll be calling Sandy later today so we can discuss these priorities further. As I told everyone around the table last night, it's vital that we keep working together. We're following the situation with this third wave closely, especially in places that are hardest hit. Yesterday, Alberta reported their highest single-day total since the beginning of the pandemic. Premier Kenney announced new restrictions to slow the spread of the virus, and our government is ready to work with the province to provide support. For Ontario, medical teams from the Canadian Armed Forces began arriving in Toronto on Tuesday night, including critical care nurses who will work in the ICUs. This first deployment of 55 members of the forces will be providing assistance to Sunnybrook Hospital and its mobile units. On Tuesday as well, a healthcare team from Newfoundland and Labrador arrived in Ontario. They're helping at Toronto General Hospital. Like I said before, we are actively working with the Government of Ontario to determine how else we can support them. For Nova Scotia, where cases are also high, we've deployed 60 Canadian Armed Forces members to testing centers to help stop the spread of the virus. And for New Brunswick, we've approved the province's request for assistance for long-term care homes. The Red Cross will assist in up to 3 facilities until the end of June. Nunavut has also requested additional support to deal with their current outbreaks. We're moving quickly to keep people safe by sending more PPE and health equipment and by providing support for households in isolation who need food or mental health services. We're also engaging with other provinces that are hit hard by this third wave to see how we can help. We're ready to send any resources needed to protect you and your family. And of course, we're continuing to deliver PPE, rapid tests, and vaccines. So far, we've distributed more than 15 million doses of vaccines right across the country. Wednesday, almost 1 million doses arrived in Canada, including our first shipment of the single-dose Janssen vaccine. Starting next week, we will be receiving 2 million doses a week just from Pfizer alone. This will mark.
Has anyone gone back and looked at what originally was predicted for vaccines versus what we actually got? Because remember, we covered this way back, saying that there was no way we were ever going to get the amount they were saying. Yeah, go back and do your own research on that.
Vaccination will be open to the general public soon. This is encouraging news. Over the last year, we have often repeated that each effort counts. Each effort means that we can better protect our healthcare workers, our families, our neighbors, and all Canadians. By wearing a mask, by maintaining social distancing, by staying home, we help save lives. And it is also true with respect to vaccinations. Each vaccine dose counts. As soon as it's your turn, I urge you to take an appointment to get your vaccine. It's important to protect oneself and to protect others. And it's only by getting vaccinated that we'll be able to get through this pandemic and get back somewhat to the lives we used to have. At the beginning of the crisis, we promised families, workers...
Who thinks he actually wants us to get back to the old normal? Just raise your hands in the comments. Thumbs up if you think Trudeau wants us to get back to the old normal. Thumbs down if you think he doesn't.
A few minutes ago,
honestly love to hear
Finance Minister
your perspective.
Freeland introduced the Budget Implementation Act in the House of Commons.
That feminist budget. This is the first feminist budget in Canadian history.
Budget, a plan to get through the pandemic, create jobs, and make sure our economy comes roaring back. This bill includes extensions of support programs that have been a lifeline for millions of Canadians, from the wage subsidy and the rent subsidy to the Canada Recovery Benefit and the Recovery Caregiving Benefit. We're facing a very serious third wave, so we need to make sure we can deliver support.
Oh, sorry about that, guys. It looks like we're froze again. Looks like a few of you, though, don't necessarily trust that they want us to get back to the old normal. I'd have to agree. Although, appreciate Jesse being the contrarian in the comments. I think it is important people feel free to share their perspective. Keyword is somewhat. Yeah, that might be a keyword there as well. So, like, you know, the parts that I liked, but not the other parts. I definitely get that sense from them. All right. Well, I guess all things being equal, now Doug Ford, I've always appreciated that your live streams have never just like froze on us the way Trudeau's is. So, well, actually, no, that's not true. Last time it froze. Right. Huh. I guess they just, yeah. All right. What did I do with my mouse? Come on. I need that Starlink internet. I need that Elon Musk beaming internet right into my house now. Let's see, is there another feed?
I think I have it here.
Okay, yeah, just hijack me, Peter.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get this back.
And make sure you're sharing audio.
Yeah. I'm just frozen.
But there's reason to hope.
Okay.
With more people getting their shot.
Got it, Peter.
And more vaccines on the way, we will get through this. And as we do, we're going to keep working together to rebuild a safe, healthier Canada and a stronger, more resilient economy that leaves no one behind.
Yeah, I'm going to stop here.
Before I pass it over to the Deputy Prime Minister.
All right, we're going to be jumping over to CPAC. It looks like their feed's maybe a little bit more reliable than what we got going on here. Sorry about this, guys. I still feel like we're doing as good, though, as our Canadian government when it comes to our live streams. So I don't feel that bad. But let me get this pulled up here. Appreciate everyone's patience. If you guys do enjoy it when we live stream this, love for you guys to smash the like button. And otherwise, just appreciate the patience while we try and find out what are the rules. So that one. So Doug Ford still isn't doing anything. All right. I think Peter's got us here, pulling it up. All right. No, still not liking you either, Peter. All right. Well, I imagine he's saying empty words to us about how all of us Canadians need to pull together in this time, and that we'll eventually, as long as you get the jab in the arm, we'll be able to go back to normal eventually once we get all of the variants under control. But
I sent you CPAC. It's working.
Okay, CPAC's working. Awesome. Let's get this going. Loving it.
$7 billion over 5 years in Canada's young people, doubling the Canada Student Grant for 2 additional years, and extending the waiver of interest payments on federal student loans through March of 2023. more than 350,000 low-income student borrowers will have access to more generous repayment assistance.
All this stuff doesn't make school more affordable, though. It just helps you get more into debt slavery for the rest of your life. We need to completely overhaul the education system if we actually want to make a change here. This is all just postulating, right? Like, we need to just slash education costs. And it can be done, but not with the way the education is currently delivered.
Et sortira près de 100,000 personnes de la pauvreté. De plus, le budget instaurera un salaire horaire minimal fédéral de $15. To help small businesses recover and grow, this budget contains a new Canada Recovery Hiring Program that will run from June to November and provide up to $595 million to make it easier for businesses to bring back laid-off workers or to hire new ones. We will also invest up to $4 billion to help up to 160,000 small and medium-sized businesses buy and adopt the new technologies they need to grow and become more productive and more competitive. And we'll encourage businesses to invest in themselves by allowing for immediate expensing of up to $1.5 million of eligible investments by Canadian controlled.
If you guys want my opinion on this, jump over to our budget breakdown that we did last Friday, because that is an interesting aspect of the budget for business owners. It will definitely incentivize us to do a lot of investment.
Enfin, nous accordons un soutien ciblé aux industries qui ont été le plus durement touchées, soit les secteurs de l'hôtellerie, du tourisme, de la culture et de l'aérospatiale. Nous allons relancer le secteur du tourisme avec un investissement d'1 milliard de dollars. Ceci est en plus de 2 milliards de dollars que nous accordons au secteur aérospatial. Tout simplement.
So for anyone expecting to see Doug Ford right now, Doug was supposed to go live at 11. He delayed because his tent got blown over. We're not even joking. Till noon. Trudeau all of a sudden jumped on live stream, so we thought, hey, let's check out Trudeau. And now we've got Christia.
To heal the wounds of COVID and to put Canada on a long-term track towards higher growth, towards greater prosperity, and towards a clean, green future. The Budget Implementation Act, tabled today, is the first major step in delivering on this plan. As the Prime Minister said, it also includes extensions and expansions of critical COVID-19 support programs for businesses and for people, including the wage subsidy, the rent subsidy, and recovery benefits. These supports are vital, as I have heard in roundtables across the country this week. And these supports will continue to be vital until the virus is beaten. The legislation also takes significant steps to drive future growth, investing in our social infrastructure and our physical infrastructure, in our human capital and in our physical capital. When enacted, this budget will make a measurable difference in the lives of millions of Canadians. I very much hope that our colleagues across the aisle will consider this legislation with the seriousness and indeed the sense of urgency that Canadians need right now. Thank you. Et maintenant, je pense que je donne la parole au nos docteurs. Oui, Monsieur le Premier ministre?
All right, so we're expecting Doug Ford to come up soon. So if and when Dougie jumps, we're going to jump over.
This is the end of the National Immunization Awareness Week today. And it's a nice segue into National Physicians Day tomorrow. Not surprisingly, physicians are among the healthcare providers that Canadians trust most for vaccination advice. And during this long and difficult crisis, our debt of gratitude to physicians across Canada extends well beyond. But first, the numbers update. To date, over 1.2 million cases of COVID-19, including 24,169 deaths, have been reported in Canada. We are making progress nationally, but there are still a few tricky spots. Daily case counts have declined by 7% over the past week to an average of below 7,900 cases. Unfortunately, the number of people experiencing severe and critical illness continues to rise. Over the past week, an average of almost 4,400 people with COVID-19 were being treated in our hospitals each day, including over 1,420 people being treated in intensive care units. At the same time, an average of 50 deaths were reported daily. Variants of concern now represent a majority of reported COVID-19 cases, with the B.1.1.7 variant accounting for over 95% of variants.
All right, it looks like we're still waiting for Doug. And Frank, you actually did blow my mind too. I never thought, but I guess that makes sense that sign language would be different in French. But I guess I don't watch a lot of national announcements.
We report daily are not just numbers. People who have been infected, those who
Can
have
someone
become
tell me which
seriously
one's
ill,
the French and which one's the
families who have
Canadian
mourned
sign
a loss
language?
have all relied on physicians across the health system to care for and support them. Beyond this, physicians, like others across the healthcare workforce, have continued to provide care under some of the most difficult circumstances imaginable. Some are working tirelessly to provide direct treatment for patients. Others are working despite the challenges of COVID-19 in order to maintain the best level of care for patients in all areas, from emergency medicine to mental health, management of chronic diseases, and prevention programs, including immunization. As we did last year, on this day, we would once again like to acknowledge the leadership and support and dedication of our provincial and territorial colleagues. Working together has made us all stronger in leading Canada through the long and rough terrain of this crisis. We are a country of consensus and collaboration, and this event has required virtually around-the-clock collaboration to assess the evolving science and evidence, provide a vast range of public health advice, and share practical experience at every stage of the response. On behalf of our colleagues, I also want to thank Canadians for their continuing efforts. More than a year ago, when Chief Medical Officers called for massive changes to the everyday lives of Canadians, you rose to the challenge, and you have shown perseverance, kindness, and solidarity. Though we are in a difficult stretch right now, we are making progress. Public health measures having an impact, and with over 13.1 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines administered across Canada to date, and vaccine supplies increasing, we will get to better days ahead. As you continue with individual precautions, follow public health advice, and get vaccinated when your turn comes, please do not stop all the other things that are vital for maintaining your health. Seek immediate care for urgent issues, and keep up with health visits to maintain physical and mental health. Care for chronic diseases and prevent future problems by keeping up to date with screening and vaccinations. Even after you've received the vaccine, hand washing, physical distancing, and mask wearing remain as important as ever. Thank you for staying as healthy as you can.
Bonjour à toutes et à tous. La fin de la Semaine nationale de promotion de la vaccination aujourd'hui est une belle transition vers la Journée nationale des médecins demain. Il n'est pas surprenant que les médecins comptent parmi les
100% agree. It'd be really nice if, they talk a lot more about how to take care of your health, right? How to get in control of your health, how to set yourself up for success. It seems like there really hasn't been a lot of talk about that. And if anything, like gyms should be encouraged to be doing, at least at an absolute goddamn bare minimum, pushing and promoting outdoor exercise classes, right? And outdoor things. Like I know Hybrid Fitness here was trying to do outdoor classes and stuff like that. And the idea that they have to struggle against the government to do that is absolutely absurd.
Les comptes quotidiens ont diminué de 7% au cours des 2 dernières semaines pour atteindre une moyenne inférieure à 7,900 cas. Malheureusement,
I like your idea there, Mike. Just a giant street party. Like we should actually like May 1st or something. That'd be great, eh? Just a giant barbecue. Everyone just own the front.
Ont été traités dans nos hôpitaux chaque jour.
All right, well, it looks like Doug still keeping us in suspense here.
Au cours de la même période,
I feel actually pretty comfortable
50 décès ont été
hitting the down
recensés
vote, but
chaque
I'll
jour.
hold off for now.
La
I'll wait
majorité des
until he
cas de
comes on.
COVID-19
Oh, stuff's happening.
signalés sont désormais associés aux variants
Ooh, it looks like
préoccupants.
something might
Le variant
happen soon.
B117 compte plus,
Oh, that's
plus de
trippy.
95% des
All right,
variants
I'm going to mute
séquencés à ce jour.
this for now. See what's going on here. Oh my goodness, we're about to find out what the rules are. Who's excited? This is just ridiculous. But hey, they're technically only 3 minutes late after being an hour late. I wonder what tent got blown over though. All right, I'm going to, I hope we don't need to come back to this one, but I'm scared that we won't be able to do two. Do you hear sound?
You're not live.
Good afternoon.
But just keep going from where
Before
you're
I
at.
begin, I want to address the Long-Term Care Commission report that I expect to see later today. As difficult as it may be, as hard as it might be to read, I fully welcome this report. Because what happened in our long-term care homes, it was tragic and it was terrible. But most of all, it can never be allowed to happen again. That's why I personally commissioned this report, to get answers, to bring the long-standing problems to light, to do everything in my power to make sure that there is justice and answers for family members. Because our best hope of fixing it is bringing these stories to light. And I could stand here and point to all the problems that I inherited. I could point to 30 years of underinvestment from government after government, liberal and conservative, but none of that matters because I'm your premier today. And I don't want them to look back 20 years and say that we could have done more.
That's not a good excuse, just being like, long as I'm an extremist, I will sleep.
But I will stand here and tell you that I'm doing everything in my power as premier, and I'm sparing no expense to fix the system.
No expense at our cost,
that have been
right?
neglected for decades.
Just checks.
Investment in the standard of care for our residents in a generation. I'm doing everything in my power to deliver better homes, better facilities, and most importantly, better care. Because we need to look to the future. We need to make sure that we keep up the fight against this deadly virus, that we don't let down our guard for a moment. Because I am as happy as you about the news of more vaccines. We hit 5 million vaccines yesterday, and I'm happy that I can tell you that by the end of today, we will have administered the first vaccine to 40% of Ontario adults. This is great news. It's news we've all been waiting for. But as difficult as it is, we can't take anything for granted right now. We need to be more vigilant than ever. Because this virus, it is changing, it is mutating. It is becoming more deadly, it is becoming smarter. And God forbid, we could one day soon face a variant that is resistant to our vaccines. Because we're learning about our terrifying new variants every single week. And sadly, not enough is being done to keep these deadly variants out of Canada. Last week, the new Indian variant was reported here in Ontario.
I hope we can all see the direction we're going here, right? Like, this isn't going to disappear. Like, we might get summer off because the seasonality of COVID, but
this week are variants of concern. The same variants that fueled our devastating third wave. And they got in because of weak border measures. I can't stress this enough. We will never get ahead of this virus if we can't keep these deadly new variants out of our country. The borders, land and air, they're federal jurisdiction. And I assure you, if I had the power, I would close down Pearson Airport immediately. I would shut down the land border crossings to only those who are absolutely essential. Because I would do everything in my power to stop a vaccine-resistant variant from getting into our country and bringing a fourth wave with it.
If you guys didn't
Last
see,
night,
CBC
I was on a call
tweeted
with
out
my
about a
fellow
fourth
premiers
wave
of
last night and then deleted
and
it
once
quickly
again
once they got a
pleaded
ton
with
of
them
backlash.
to do
The
more,
narrative's already being
to tighten the
developed. I hope you
airports,
guys
to bring
realize.
in mandatory pre-departure testing for those flying into Ontario from other provinces. And most importantly, to close the massive loopholes at our land border with the United States by bringing in a mandatory hotel quarantine for those major land crossings. Because too many people are exploiting these weak measures at our land border to get around the hotel quarantine. I want to thank our incredible border protection officers. These people are true heroes. They're doing everything in their power to keep our country safe, and I fully support them. The problem is with the measures in place, because as long as you can fly to Buffalo, take a taxi or a limo to the US border, and walk across to Canada to avoid having the quarantine in a hotel.
I get it. This is great government posturing, but this doesn't
not
actually
safe
really
to
change
police
anything.
your
Like, our big
families.
issue isn't that
And
people
I
are
will
crossing the
not
border
let
in
this issue
cabs.
go, because too much is at stake.
The big
Because
issue is we need
I
to
was the
be
one
concerned
who
with
had to
those
close our
individuals
schools,
that are truly
close our
susceptible,
businesses,
right?
tell you to stay at
The
home
older populations.
when
But
the last
outside of that,
variants
we
got into the
shouldn't be
country
concerned
earlier
about
this year.
whatsoever.
And I will do everything in my power as Premier. I will use every tool I have to make sure the action we need is taken. To make sure I don't have to stand here one day soon and tell you that we face a fourth wave fueled by a vaccine-resistant variant. We just can't let that happen. And I told the Prime Minister last night, I will work with him. I will do everything I can to support him with doing the right thing. Thank you, and God bless the people of Ontario. I'd be happy to take questions.
Okay, Premier, your first question comes from Christina Tenalia with CP24. Christina, if you can unmute your mic.
Hi there, Premier. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Thanks, Premier. Yes, thank you, Premier. So, Premier, on former Finance Minister Rod Phillips, you said on December the 30th, he never told anyone he was leaving. He never told me he was leaving, is what you said. You also said on December 30th that when you found out about the trip 2 weeks before, you should have told him to return home right away. Now, as you know, emails indicate your office knew as early as December the 4th. So, Premier, when did you know and what did you know?
Well, I can tell you exactly the same as what I told you before. The first time I found out was when I talked to him. And, you know, I said back then, I regret not telling him to come home, which I did shortly thereafter. But, you know, with Rod, he made a mistake. He apologized. He stepped up. And he's no longer in cabinet as a result of that mistake. Rod's working hard for the people of Ajax. He's going to continue working hard. And, you know, he again, admitted his mistake and paid the price.
Follow up? Christina, you'll have to unmute again.
Thank you so much for that. Premier, on what I was saying is you're clearly isolating at home at this time.
Yes.
On taxpayer, on sick days, you are on taxpayer paid sick days right now. The Ontario Science Table says Ontarians need 10 paid sick days. You're offering 3. When Stenny Brown was asked yesterday if 3 paid sick days is enough to drive COVID-19 cases down enough to bring Ontario into a best case scenario, he replied with a firm no. So why do you think your plan will create any impact in tackling this pandemic this late in the game? And in saying that, I'm wondering if you can clarify where you've been the last week. Thank you.
Well, I've been here and I've been on the phone all day from 7 in the morning doing conferences, working as usual. The only difference is I'm here opposed to Queen's Park. But let me just clarify this. I want to make sure this message is very, very clear. We closed the bridge, the gap, as we called it, 3 days at $200 a day. So that's a total of $600. We also have on the table to increase the federal government payment, which was basically below minimum wage. and we're acting, and we're asking them, and we'll pay for it, not the federal government, up to $500 additional dollars, which will be $1,000 a week for 4 weeks. So that's now $25 an hour, opposed to under minimum wage that the federal government was offering. So let me just run through that. That's 3 days at $200, up to $200, which will cover the gap. And then on top of that, we're offering $500 a week for 4 weeks, which is $2,000 on top of the federal government's $2,000. So that's $4,600, up to $4,600 if the federal government can work with the program that we have. So that hopefully will get people over the hump until they can feel better and get back to work.
Your next question comes from Lorenda Redekop with CBC.
Lorenda.
Hi there, Premier. All the recent polls are showing that the majority of voters are dissatisfied with how you're handling the pandemic. What are you going to try to do to convince them that you are doing a good job?
Well, I'll tell you, I continue working hard, making sure that I do my job to make sure these variants don't come in through the border, work with the federal government. Brenda, the 90% of our cases right now, you go back to the variants. And I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that we keep our borders closed and work with the federal government to make sure they don't come in. I'm going to make sure I continue working hard to get people vaccinated. And, you know, I think the whole country has seen we didn't have enough vaccines. Now in May, we're going to have quite a few vaccines. We're going to continue getting needles into people's arms and continue working until we can crush this virus once and for all. But we won't stop working. And I want to thank everyone out there, anyone that's putting needles into people's arms or helping out at the vaccination centers. I want to thank all the pharmacists for doing a great job. We still have a long ways to go. We vaccinated 40% before the time frame, before the end of the lockdown period. So everyone's working hard. We're going to continue working hard.
Follow up?
Why did your government appoint Norm Sterling to head the Greenbelt Council, someone who voted against creating the Greenbelt and then whose cuts to the environment ministry were later linked to the Walkerton E. coli tragedy?
Well, again, I would talk to the Minister of Environment about that, but we're putting together a good plan for the environment. We're going to invest over $1 billion to make sure that, you know, the emissions from the cars will eventually stop, because we'll be the #1 manufacturer of battery operated cars in North America. We're the only government that is actually expanding the expanding the Greenbelt compared to the last government.
That was a slip.
For 15 years, they changed the Greenbelt 17 times for their developer buddies. I'm not doing that. I'm not touching the Greenbelt. I've said that from the beginning. We haven't, and we're going to continue down that track.
Your next question comes from Harrison Lohman with TVO.
Hi, Harrison.
Hi there, Premier. A few days ago, Prime Minister Trudeau was asked if there was anything about his government's vaccine procurement approach that he thought in retrospect was a mistake. He said no. Your response and his response to this virus will clearly be a massive part of both of your political legacies. And I'm wondering, looking back, is there anything about your provincial government's vaccination rollout that you think was a significant mistake?
Well, we needed more vaccines. And if you're asking me about the people putting needles into people's arms, they're doing an incredible job. People stepped up, hospitals stepped up, public health units stepped up, you know, paramedics stepped up, firefighters stepped up. Everyone stepped up to help out. If you're asking me, would things be different if we weren't 45th in the world or 50th, whatever it was? Yeah, it'd be different. If you're asking me, you know, if we had tighter border measures at the borders, land and air, would it be different? Absolutely, it would be different. Put that into perspective. In the last 2 weeks, 150,000 people came through our land borders in Canada. 36,000 a month are coming through the airports. All I'm asking, and it's not a criticism, it's work with us. We need tougher restrictions. It's not just about the foreign students coming here. It's about having two sets of rules that the federal government's put down. There's one set of rule if you fly in and you have to quarantine in a hotel. And by the way, people aren't doing that, just to, let you in on that one. And going to one of the land borders that people are driving up and getting out and walking across their border. I talked to a taxi driver the other day. They had 400 cars, down at the border picking people up. The system is broken. All I'm asking the federal government to stop the variants from coming in. And these are deadly variants. 90% of all cases are related right back to our variants.
Can you show hard data about that?
That we've seen from one case, the UK variant, was Roberta Place in Barrie. One person that was quarantining, was living with another person, went in there, and there was 200 cases, and unfortunately, tragically, close to 100 people lost their lives because of the variants. Put it this way: if the borders were safe, the system would be working. I can tell you, and I think everyone can see, it's not working. The borders are broken. We need to fix it, and I'm willing to work with the federal government to make sure we fix it and stop the variants from coming into our province.
Follow up.
Premier, the leader of the official opposition, NDP leader, Andrea Horwath, she told our show the other day on the agenda that she had yet to meet with you during this pandemic. We're now over a year into this thing, and that could potentially be a moment where she could give her party's input on how to beat back COVID-19. I know you said repeatedly that you need a Team Ontario approach to beat back this virus, and I'm wondering if you see any benefit in meeting with opposition leaders to sort of combine knowledge and make it part of your planning.
Actually, at the beginning of this, this pandemic, we did sit down and we chatted, and then we called it for another meeting. She didn't bother showing up, and another meeting never showed up, sent someone else. So, something, I'm willing to work with anyone. I want to work with anyone. It's easy to sit back in opposition benches and criticize. I'm on the front lines. A lot of people are on the front lines. And, the federal NDP leader actually was echoing what I've been saying for months about the borders. That's what it comes down to. The federal government needs to tighten up the borders. Now we have more vaccines coming in May, and we're going to get them into people's arms. So we're going to work closely with the federal government. We're going to work closely with our municipalities, and we're going to get through this.
Your next question comes from Cynthia Mulligan with City News.
Hi, Cynthia.
Yeah, for everyone talking about the variants in the chat, where's the data showing how they distinguish between the two? What tests? Those PCR tests absolutely do not tell you what variant you have.
We know that a lot of spread is coming from the workplaces. And yesterday, Dr. Stani Brown made it quite clear that he doesn't necessarily, in the science table, doesn't necessarily agree with some choices that your government made. They say sick days need to be more. They also say 50% of vaccines going into hotspot areas where a lot of essential workers are, that they need to be extended beyond the 2 weeks that your government will divert them for 6 weeks. What is your response to that? And yet again, it seems like you're not listening to the science advisory table.
Well, again, let me put this into perspective. I had a long chat with Dr. Brown the other night. We had a good conversation with Cabinet with Dr. Brown. I appreciate everything that the science table is doing. They also, there's two parts to this. I also listen to the medical advisors, the CEOs of hospitals, and most importantly, my chief medical officer. And as for the sick days, I just ran through it, how we want to double up what the federal government's doing. We're filling the gap, and the total is $4,600, up to $4,600. And I think that's fair for a lot of people to get them over the hump. As for the workplace, where these variants coming in? Well, the variants within the workplace, Cynthia, are coming from the borders, our porous borders that are coming in, that people, you see it on your own news.
Borders variant, borders variant, variant, borders, borders variant. Like, so is the solution here that we'll just never be able to leave the country or have people come into the country? Because like these variants aren't going to go away, right? If like unless your proposal is that every single country locks down for months on end and essentially maybe just shoot citizens on site that are outside of their homes, I legitimately don't understand how you plausibly think all these variants are going to disappear.
Targeting high priority neighborhoods or hot areas, if you want to call them. We're going into companies, a tremendous amount of companies with the mobile vaccine units, and vaccinating these employers.
Follow up?
Thank you, Premier. My other question to you is, the last time we saw you from the backyard, from isolation, you promised the best paid sick day program in all of North America. We know California offers more. Quebec and PEI, they have fewer days, but they're permanent. They're not temporary. Was that just an overblown promise, Premier?
Well, no, let's go back to what you just said. Quebec doesn't have a better sick day program. We're offering and that's no knock against Quebec, because I love Premier Legault, but we're offering up to $500 a week for 4 weeks.
I don't understand why we're so worked up about these sick days and stuff. Like for fuck's sakes, if that's the end of the world, just pass the fucking shit, give away all the free money, and let's move on. But like that still doesn't solve any of the underlying issues here. Like it's all just a distraction, right? It's a sideshow.
We've looked into it. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it across the country either.
Your last questions come from Laura Stone with the Globe and Mail.
Hi, Premier. Thanks for taking our questions. I just want to go back to the Rod Phillips issue.
And I don't know if it's thanks for taking our questions, to be honest, because like, no, you have a duty to answer to the people that elected you.
The minister is going to be away. He's not in Toronto, and he won't be available in person for 5 weeks. I mean, how does that not set off red flags? And how is it possible that no one told you that?
Well, we have 72 members at Christmas. Everyone decides to either go to a cottage, maybe travel, but no one ever told me. And I can tell you, no one told me that he's leaving the country. When I found out, I addressed it with the media. And if there's one area that I wish I could have changed is when he called me. I should have told him to get back, but shortly thereafter, when I called him again, I asked him to come back, and he paid for that mistake. And he's going to continue working hard for the people of Ajax.
No, man, sick days is not going to solve this problem. Like, that's such a childish
I thought people weren't
train of thought there that like, I mean, just like if everyone had enough sick days, then they wouldn't be spraying COVID. No, absolutely, that's not how this works, man. Like, and it's just, again, I'm happy to allow you to keep saying whatever your opinion is in the comments, but you're dead wrong default name.
Can you clarify or tell the public if you're considering putting Mr. Phillips back in cabinet?
Well, first of all, I don't discuss any cabinet moves with anyone. And as for going back to that, again, Rod Phillips made a mistake. He didn't say in that letter that he was traveling anywhere, and I didn't see that. We have 73 members, and we're going to continue working hard for the people, or I should say, Rod's going to continue working hard for the people of Ajax, and so will we. But again, he paid for that mistake. He was the finance minister. He's no longer the finance minister.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, there was another nothing burger for you guys where nothing happened. But I think a few commenters did have good points. I think a lot of you guys had good points in the comments, but I really appreciated one or two comments that specifically were touching upon, Doug Ford talking about what he wishes he could do. Like, one is just kind of virtue signaling, but two, I think is really trying to prep or frame you guys for what is likely eventually to come next. Because again, like, these variants aren't going to go away across the world. And so is the solution that until we've got a vaccine for every possible variant, that we can't open up the borders? Do you understand, if you run that to its logical conclusion, the conclusion is never open up the borders again. Just become New Zealand and literally just never allow anyone in or out of your country. Like, no, you're going to die someday, right? So for those of you that literally think that as long as COVID doesn't get you, that you'll live forever. That's not the case. And understand that all the surgeries that are postponed, all the doctor appointments canceled, all the mental health issues that are occurring also have costs in lives. The same way that COVID has real costs in lives as well. Now, I think one of the interesting arguments, if you dig deeper into the math behind who is dying from COVID, is they're sometimes called like what's the dead wood analogy, right? And that was also something that was brought up during the Spanish flu. I think COVID-19 might even have a stronger argument towards that, right? That in fact, it'd been a while since we really had something massive come through humans, right? Like come through humanity. And because of that, we had a lot of people that would have normally in previous years and previous generations never lived to that length or never been able to continue life at that sort of degree. That's kind of the dead wood. And sometimes a fire burns through and burns up all the dead wood, right? And so again, this idea that we're supposed to sacrifice an entire generation of children because old people is wild to me. At what point in time did we decide that one life is one life too many when it comes to doing cost benefit analysis? Like it literally is absurd, and it's not going to end. I honestly, again, we started off this live stream with me talking about, I'm pretty sure I'm going to set an arbitrary date. I don't know what that date is. I don't know how long I should wait before I decide that the canary in the coal mine is absolutely dead and Canadians do not value their liberty. They do not value their freedom, and they've got no interest in it. Because again, it concerns me when I see so many individuals so passionately promoting lockdowns and just more government spending and all these things that will have long-term consequences. There's no other way around it. And it honestly hurts my soul too a little bit. But I think that's why it's so important that we probably all, or at least any of you that kind of agree with me, we probably need to start really examining our ego and our personal identities and asking ourselves, is being a Canadian a core component of your personal ego and identity? Or is it just another label that was applied to you at your birth? And, for a while, Canada was a great country, but maybe it's not destined to be a great country forever. Maybe we don't want it to be a great country forever. It definitely seems like some of you guys don't want it to be a great country forever, at least based upon my definition of greatness. Again, each person's more than welcome to their own definition, but I do find it personally concerning. And I honestly don't see a way out of this. I just don't understand when they're now going to give us the all clear mark, right? Like, is fighting COVID for a decade worth it? Is fighting it indefinitely worth it, right? Like, do we literally just never leave our houses again? Is this the new normal? Are we building back better now? You guys should be concerned. And honestly, one of the ways that I think we can honestly vote against all this tyranny, against all this government control, isn't by trying to argue between, what was it on The Simpsons, like Kudos and Kodos or whatever, the two aliens that were like, took over the world. It's like, don't blame me, I voted for Kudos, and don't blame me, I voted for Kodos. No, it's not going to be like, no one politician is going to fix this. I honestly, at this point in time, I think a vote for Bitcoin is a better vote than for any political party, for any individual. Don't get me wrong, PPC, I think, what Maxime Bernier is doing, I think is interesting. I definitely resonate more with his party than just about any other party. I haven't looked as much into the Maverick Party out west, but again, I've heard from some followers and stuff that they seem to resonate and think that that makes sense. But I honestly think you need to get your financial situation in order. I think you need to get control of your financial life and future, because if you become dependent on the government, it becomes so much more difficult to speak out, right? The same way that I see some doctors and nurses, and I get DMs from people as well, that they don't like what they're seeing in day to day, but they're scared to speak out because they could lose their licensing, right? They could lose their job. They could be fired. And that can be very disruptive to any individual's life, particularly if it comes at the cost of your credentials and your entire career that you've spent an entire life building your personal identity and ego around it, right? And it's not an easy position for them to be in. Same with like police officers and enforcement officers that maybe don't agree with the rules, but are also not sure where their line in the sand is. I think the real danger is each of us not having a line in the sand. I'm not telling you where your line in the sand should be, but I'm telling you should develop one today. If you didn't already have a line in the sand, decide where your line in the sand is when it comes to government encroachment on your freedoms and rights. And whenever the government decides to cross that line, you've got a duty to yourself, your morals, your ethics, your personal conviction to stand up and speak out at that point in time. I think that you guys know that my line in the sand's probably already been nudged up against or maybe pushed already. Maybe it's already been passed. But I've never actually really sat down and been like, okay, that's when this is a step truly too far. I think that I need to set that deadline. And at that moment in time, at that inflection point, I need to ask myself, do I want to fight this? Is fighting to try and change Canada back to what I believed it once was worth it? Or should I let Canada go? And should I go find people that understand, that resonate with me, where they believe you've got an inherent right to, or an inherent right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Because that all sounds pretty great to me, rather than the right to, sit down, shut up, and listen to your goddamn government and hashtag science, because facts. Because it's very disheartening what I see going on in this world. I appreciate those of you that were following along with me. If you got value from this, I'd love it if you smash that like button, hit subscribe. Sharing is caring when we talk about social media, because the algorithms definitely don't like it. I saw the other day, Peter posted a story on my Instagram that was just a screenshot, because we hit 74,000 subs on YouTube. And someone sent me a DM on Instagram and was like, bro, why so low on the revenue? Because I literally used to make, and you can see on my revenue chart when COVID happened. And now maybe it's advertisers, but I think it's more because I use the word COVID and all my videos get demonetized, because we all know that if you're not mainstream media and you talk about COVID, you're automatically wrong and fake news. But yeah, again, there is even small, subtle consequences for me when I talk about this stuff, when I speak out. And again, thankfully, I've built my financial fortress of solitude. So I'm comfortable speaking my mind. I'm comfortable speaking out. I'm comfortable telling you guys that you should develop your own line in the sand. But it's going to be a lot easier to stick to that conviction if you've got your financial fortress of solitude already built and in place. How you build it, I don't care. Whether you decide to go into stocks and dividends, whether you get into real estate, whether you start a small business, whether it's somehow crypto or Bitcoin or trading, however you decide to build your financial fortress of solitude, you need to do that, because it's going to be able to give you the courage and the conviction to speak up when they cross that line in the sand. Because they're coming for it. They are absolutely coming for it. Unless others speak up on your behalf, there's going to come a moment in time where they're going to push and then cross your line in the sand. And I hope that you're in the financial position where you can speak up, speak your mind, and stand your ground. And if not, I'll see you in Texas. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you in the next live stream.